Hi, I'm Katie Crane, and this is the Pilates Lounge.
Welcome to Season 4, my friends, of the Pilates Lounge podcast. This is a space for movement lovers, Pilates educators, and Pilates professionals who want to think a little bit deeper about the work we do. My name's Katie Crane. I've been teaching Pilates for over 20 years, and along the way, I've worn many hats. Studio owner, teacher trainer, mentor, and lifelong student of the work we do. I'm also a surfer, an adventurer, a mum, a busy wife, and someone who believes that movement is by far more than exercise. On this podcast, we talk about Pilates as a practice, not just what we do on the mat or on the equipment, but how Pilates shapes the way we move, teach, lead, and live our lives. We explore anatomy, health, business, culture, and the evolving identity of Pilates in the modern world. This is a place for honest conversations, lived experience, and perspectives that respect both the lineage of Pilates and the people practicing it today. So thank you so much for being here. Let's dive into the episode. Hi everyone, my name's Katie Crane. I'm the Pilates professional. Welcome to this week's episode of the Pilates Lounge podcast. Have I got some information for you that you need if you are currently an instructor, a Pilates instructor, Pilates teacher, or you're even considering becoming one? This is a very common scenario for so many of us in this industry. We get our certificate as Pilates instructors. We are so thrilled. We cannot wait to start sharing our passion with Pilates, for Pilates, with as many people as possible. We get out there, we teach, we never say no to anything. And then a few years down the track, we are so burnt out that we cannot function any longer. How on earth does this happen when all of us go out into the world of instructing, wanting to help people? We are so passionate about the work that we do. We sincerely want to give back to our community, yet it leaves us feeling like we are a shell of the person that we started as. Whose fault is this? Who do we turn to when this is happening? And how, as an industry, do we prevent this from happening over and over again? I can tell you now, as a studio owner, I see this happen all the time. It happened to myself. I got to the point in my teaching where I could not even stand the idea of teaching any longer. And I have seen this happen to way too many excellent instructors. The first time this happened, really, I mean, I've seen a lot of instructors come and go over the 20 years that I've had a studio. Partly because where I live is very transient, so somebody would move from overseas or interstate. Like everybody kind of comes to my town for 2 to 5 years. That's really common. But I have seen instructors who are at the top of their game completely burn out, leave the industry, and look for other careers. That's not healthy. Why is that happening? This is what I want to talk about today. And I don't have all the answers, but I think that this conversation needs to be had. And I actually do see this conversation be had in the online space. I see it in a lot of the Pilates groups on Facebook, people saying that they're not being paid enough, that they're not being respected in the workplace. But I think that this is a much bigger conversation than just being paid for the work that you do. This is, and I'm just sharing what I see, right? A few years ago, I employ full-time instructors. I offer my instructors full-time, permanent part-time, or casual. I don't take on any contractors at all. I don't think that they're healthy for my business. They don't step into the culture. They don't have the same values as the business does. And so we just do not employ contractors. I know that as a contractor, you can ask for more money. But as a contractor, you also should be responsible for growing your own following, taking and making bookings, cancellations, creating your own schedule. So if you're not doing that, if you're not bringing in your own clients to the studio, then you, my friend, are not a contractor and you should not be charging contractors' rates. So all of our staff are employees and we pay after their probationary period, we pay our instructors on on a wage that is scalable. I can't think of the word right now, but basically, if I see that you're growing your following, you consistently have the same people come into your classes, you've got a lot of recurring bookings. If I see that you are actively growing your classes, then you're on a scaling wage, and ultimately that scaling wage is up to you. I don't have a cap on that wage. If you came to me as an instructor and you could actively tell me that you are of really high value to our studio, you could charge me whatever you want as an employee. But this is what happens. An instructor starts teaching and they don't, and the ones that burn out are the ones who want full time or permanent part time work. So they want to work 20 to 40 hours a week, but they do not see themselves as anything but an instructor. Nobody can instruct consistently 20 to 40 hours a week and think that that is a sustainable occupation. Unfortunately, teaching on its own is not sustainable. Why? We give so much energy to our clients, and not only are we giving energy to our clients actively when we're instructing, when we're teaching them, clients, without even realizing it, are skimming energy off of us. Clients sometimes can almost be like vampires. They can suck the energy out of us. Now, so there's a few things that I want to go over today. A, how to protect yourself from the vampire client, how to protect your own energy. And B, how to create yourself a sustainable career in this industry that is booming. I mean, I was speaking to my friend the other day who's actually a broker in New South Wales, and he was saying that for every studio that is popping up on every corner of the every street in New South Wales, another studio is either shutting its doors or putting themselves up for sale. There's no doubt about it. There is a bubble in the Pilates industry that is very soon going to pop. A, you don't want to be in one of those studios, but that's another topic, another conversation that I'm going to have soon. B, you want to make sure that you have something different to offer the studio that you're working at so that you don't have to be going to 10 different studios to fulfill the hours that you need as a teacher, because every minute that you spend on the road driving from one studio to the next is valuable time. And B, you want to make sure that you can offer the studio that you're working for so much that they cannot afford to let you go. So I'm going to help you figure out how you do that. And it is not by being the best instructor in the room at all. It's actually by being able to diversify what you can offer. So this is the deal. Let's start with how you actually protect your own energy. Something that I see in instructors, I've had the studio for 20 years, right? I've seen a lot of instructors come through. And one of the things that burns people out is when instructors share too much of themselves. When I started teaching, I had a business straight away, not because I necessarily wanted a business, but because there was no other Pilates studio up here. That was like 20 years ago. So I opened a studio. I felt like there was no other way around it. I've learned a lot in those 20 years. And one of those things is how to protect my energy. I learned very quickly that there was no point in having coffee with clients, seeing clients socially, sharing any of my private life with clients. And even having conversations about their private life within the studio. Why? Because every single conversation outside of the topic of Pilates was draining my energy. Every feeling that I shared, every feeling that I had of them sharing their life was draining my energy. As instructors, we need to put a very strong barrier up between us as an instructor and our private life. And it's why we have very strict rules in our studio that you do not share your private life with your clients. When you come into the studio, you're teaching Pilates and that's it. It doesn't matter if you're, and I don't want to sound that I'm not loving, because I am. I love my staff very deeply. I care for them very deeply, and I go above and beyond to make sure that their workplace is safe and secure. But I will not put up with any instructors coming in. My dog has died, so I'm crying. My car broke down, so I'm crying. I had an argument with my husband, my boyfriend, my best friend, whatever it is. All of that stays outside of the studio. You walk in the studio door and none of your outside life has any impact on the service that you're providing in the studio. For the very reason that if you bring your outside life into the studio and you share it with everybody else in the room, every client who comes in, other staff members, whoever it may be, if you start to share your private life with people, then they will start to suck that energy out of you. It doesn't give you more energy, it actually reduces the energy that you have. And when you start reducing the energy that you have, then you will start to feel burnt out. You will start to resent even coming into the studio. So it's not about not being friendly, not being kind, not being liked. It's about protecting yourself. So, so important. So if you are an oversharer and you share your private life with your clients because you think that you're gonna be liked or that they're looking for a friend, A, they've got to pay you. So if you're sharing your private life with somebody, then your clients actually have one up on you. And it's not like your clients are mean or they're going to take you for a ride. But that if you show vulnerability like that, then your client doesn't turn up for a session. They late cancel or they're a no-show and they are privy to your private life, then they have much more, you have much less capacity to ask for them to pay their late cancellation fee or their no-show fee. It's just the way that that whole energy works. So very important that when you walk into the studio door, the only conversations you're having with clients are conversations that matter for their body, for their goals, for their own fears, and for them to continue to show up for you. Rule number 2, if you're a studio owner, you do not employ friends. That will always end in tears. And that's another topic. It's not really how to avoid burnout, but it definitely is not a good idea if you're a studio owner. You got to keep everything very professional. But so you're not, but as far as burnout is concerned, you're not sharing your personal life with your clients. But also, if your clients invite you to their birthday, to their graduation, to their anniversary, out for dinner, out for coffee, whatever the case may be very careful with that because you are then stepping up the energy that you are sharing with them. And I can guarantee once you overstep the line of a client becoming, in inverted commas, a friend, then they're going to be taking more energy from you every time they come into the studio because their expectations are different. The energy that you give a friend is very different to the energy that you give a client. And if it's not, this is part of your problem. It should be very different. The energy that you give a client is capped at what they are paying or what you are charging. It's not this isn't being mean or unloving or not thoughtful. It's actually giving you the capacity to give to them sustainably over a long period of time. I have an assumption that every client that I meet is with me for a minimum of 2 years. So I have to have enough to give them for a 2 year period. Every time they turn up, I need to have a smile on my face. I need to have strength in my constitution that I can deal with anything that they bring into the room, whether that's their emotional self, their physical self, any pain that they're in. I mean, we've all heard it. Our clients tell us a lot of very personal information. They offload on us. That's part of our job. So for them to be able to offload on us and for us to not be a sponge, to not be affected by whatever it is that they're telling us, we have to put this barrier up. And part of that barrier is us not sharing our personal lives with them. And I've seen this so many times. The instructor that gets burnt out is the oversharer. The instructor that gets burnt out is the instructor who is emotionally affected by the people that they are seeing. It's not that you don't have empathy. I have a heck of a lot of empathy for people, but I also have a very strong constitution that I can be empathetic. I can have emotional intelligence, so I can shoe shift. I can understand what it is that that person is feeling, but I don't take those feelings on myself. So I can still stay outside of their emotional bubble, of their experience. I can even cry with a client and that's okay. But I can easily emotionally wash myself of their experience. It's so important as instructors. So how do you become that person? Over the years, I have realized that I can be that person. I can be the strong, capable, diplomatic person in the room by working on my own spiritual well-being. So it doesn't come from me practicing Pilates. It doesn't come from me actively being cold. It comes from me being very spiritually strong. How do you become a spiritually strong person so that you can hold space for other people without being part of their energy? You practice meditation. You practice spiritual hygiene. So you read books that are helping you grow. And so to grow spiritually doesn't mean that you got to go to church. It doesn't mean that you got to sit on a rock and meditate all day long. It means that you become a very aware person. So it means that when somebody else is feeling something, you're not affected by that person. So if somebody is nasty, is mean, is angry, you are not affected by that because you have very strong constitution or strong spiritual hygiene. Hey friend, thanks so much for listening. Did you know that you can now find us on YouTube at youtube.com/The Pilates Professional? Now, if this episode resonates with you, please share it with someone else who would benefit from hearing it. Back to the show. So you could, where was I going? Things that can help you get there. Spending time in nature. So people who scroll on their phone all day long do not have strong spiritual hygiene. They are, for lack of better word, they're part of the matrix. If you're stuck in the matrix, you're scrolling on Instagram, you're worried about what you look like all day long, you're out there trying to please everybody because you don't feel good enough about yourself, you do not have strong spiritual constitution. You have to be doing work on yourself. So maybe that's meditation, maybe it's yoga or the practice of the yogic meditation. It's definitely reading books about self care, self growth, reading books on people who have overcome adversity. So you could read maybe like the book on David Goggins. David Goggins is a guy who was in what's that really high end, like the SAS, I think it is, but he's had spent a life of pain and then overcame his pain by pushing himself through things. books on people who have lost limbs and then become, great achievers, books on people who have actually done good stuff. You want to read a lot of that. 10 pages every day is part of my spiritual cleansing is ten pages every day reading a book that is going to make me a better person. It's not a fiction. Do things like spend a lot of time in nature. So, walking at the beach without your phone. You don't have to be listening to a podcast every second of every day. Actually, spend time on your own by yourself. Do art without listening to music, without listening to a podcast. You could sing. So, music, yes, is very good for spiritual cleansing, but that's not like listening to Triple J or Hottest 100. It's listening to classical music that is played on an instrument. There is information out there that tells us that listening to music that is built with technology does very different things in our brain than listening to music that is orchestral or concert music. So if you choose to listen to music when it comes to spiritual cleansing, you should be listening to music that is actually played on an acoustic instrument. So that is like an acoustic guitar, not an electric guitar, drumming, piano, a violin, so concert kind of stuff. That is spiritually cleansing. And if you think about it, if you look at um, ancient history or cultures all over the world, a lot of cultures have music as part of their uh, traditional practices. So, this is part of spiritual cleansing. Grounding is part of grounding. So, getting out in nature, walking in the dirt, on grass, on rocks, on the beach. But you need to be doing this, or we need to be doing this, without the interruption of technology. Yes, technology is fantastic. Technology may be helping with your business. It may be helping grow your following. It may be helping you be a more successful instructor. It's not helping you be a better person. So, it's what can we do to be better people when we are working on ourselves and when we realize that we are not just here to build a business or to be successful in inverted commas. Everything in life is designed as lessons. So we're constantly learning lessons. And I'm not talking about learning a new Pilates class. It's not the Pilates class that is the lesson. It's what is that Pilates class teaching you about yourself. So we have to be constantly working on the self so that then we have a deeper understanding of ourselves, understanding of other people, and only then can you actually protect yourself from other people at the same time. A lot of our clients do come to us without even knowing, and they are spiritual vampires. You can feel it when you've worked in the room with people who are sucking energy from you. And sometimes, because of the industry that we work in, that we're serving other people, we're working closely with other people, sometimes people will actually come to you unknowingly to try and take energy from you because they are lacking in energy. And unfortunately, because we tend to be givers as Pilates teachers, unfortunately, sometimes we can get sucked into that trap. So it is something that I recommend you become very aware of as an educator, as an instructor, that sometimes when you give too much of yourself, it can be detrimental to your own health. So, moving on from the idea of energy, right? But it's definitely something that I want you to consider. You want to protect your energy. And then, if you really want longevity in this industry, you need to be able to diversify. What does that mean? I cannot tell you the number of instructors I have had work with me. And from the get go, I always say, especially if they want full time employment, yes, I can give you full time employment, but you cannot sustainably teach more than 30 hours a week. And over the course of, say, 2 to 5 years, you need to be able to then reduce those hours of teaching But within the studio, what else can you bring? And I have worked with staff so many times to try and help them find their superpower. So I'm letting you know, as a listener of the Pilates Lounge podcast, you need to figure out who else are you going to be as well as an instructor. So here's some ideas, right? Say you're teaching no more than 30 hours a week, and that really has to include any covers that you're doing. Because if you're working for a studio, say you've got 20 to 25 hours of your own teaching on the clock, invariably, if you're a full-time or a permanent part-time staff member, which is the ideal because then you get huge benefits. You get sick pay, holiday pay, you probably get a training wage as well. Then you probably end up covering, say, an average of 5 hours a week of other staff who need time out, of people who are sick or whatever, right? So say no more than 25 hours yourself of teaching. If you want to have a full-time job, then you need to find another 10 to 15 hours a week. So how can you do that? These are some ideas that I know as a studio owner are super valuable for me, and things that our staff end up doing to avoid the burnout. Having said that, I've still got staff members who burn out, but you know what? They're the ones who choose to stay casual because they feel like the casual loading gives them more money and they don't know what else to do. So they end up working for me casually 20 hours, but then they're doing their own thing, either working at home 20 hours or doing something else somewhere else for 20 hours that is similar to teaching. Maybe they do massage or something like that, but they're still giving that energy. You cannot do that. And I can tell you now, opening your own studio is not the answer because you open your own studio and all of a sudden you're working 50 to 70 hours a week and you're not paying yourself as high a wage as what you're paying these staff that I'm talking about. So if you're going to work 20 to 25 hours a week, you need to accept that you are probably gonna do a couple of split shifts. That is the industry, right? So get ready for that, my friends. I would say personally, I'm gonna push out my teaching hours as much as I can in a short period of time. So my full-time staff members, they have 2 days off a week, but they're still working 38 hours. And we will do those 38 hours over a fortnight. So maybe one week they might be working 30 hours, and then the next week they might be working 40 hours or something like that, right? To try and even it out. But, whatever it is, whatever 38 hours times 2, what is that? Please help me. One week they might be working 30 hours, and then the next week they're working 46 hours, which seems like a lot, but that might then give them 2.5 days off in one of those weeks, and then they make up the next in other stuff. So these are things that are very valuable to a studio that would set you apart from other people, give you the hours that you want without the burnout. If you enjoy doing social media, every studio out there needs consistent social media. So as a studio, you need to be putting out social media every single day if you're ever going to get seen. If you don't understand social media, then you are really missing the point of being in this industry. Social media is a beast on its own. And I can tell you now, I'm not a fan of social media, but I'm out there every single day with social media on my handles to be seen. But the way that we do social media is we set aside about 60 minutes every single week and get everything filmed. And then we send that filming off to somebody who then produces the content. So that could be something that you could do as an instructor. It could take up another couple of hours of your time. I mean, it probably could take up a good 5 hours every week of doing social media, of doing the filming, and then doing the editing of that content for the studio that you work at. Administrative tasks are always something that every studio needs. So if you are good at emails, email marketing, phone calls, a new client onboarding, so bringing new clients into the studio, anything administrative can take up at least 10 hours of your time every single week. So it's a great add-on to you being an instructor. So if like I've worked with instructors for years and years and years, and they don't want to know how to send emails, how to make phone calls. They don't even want to know the booking system. And then after 5 or 8 years of working, I can promise you they're burnt out because they think that they're gonna get more out of teaching, because especially if you say if you're teaching classes and you're on this scaling rate, your classes are full because you're a great teacher and you're making really good money filling those classes, but hey, 5 years down the track and you can't teach, like, you're so burnt out that you can't even stand the idea of teaching a class, but, you see this short-term plan, "Oh, well, I can make $70, $80 a class when I'm teaching. Why would I wanna do administrative tasks, which I'm probably earning half the wage?" Well, hello, 5 or 8 years down the track and you no longer want to teach because you're so burnt out. Well, how did that work out? I'm just putting it out there that this is what I see all the time. I had a full-time staff member and she was such a great instructor. And I kept saying to her for 2 years, I could see that she was burning out. And I kept saying to her, look, you need to figure out how else can you add value to this company? Because you're an amazing instructor, but you keep choosing to teach more because you don't like doing administrative tasks. And I said, how about if I put you through a course where you could learn marketing? Because a lot of my job as a studio owner is marketing. I love running a business. Like, it's totally my jam. It's not for everyone. So if you don't love marketing, running a business, everything behind the scenes, do not ever own a studio. But she was like, oh no, I don't think I really like doing that. Okay, cool. So then I said, because part of what we do is teacher training. So then I said, how about if you make some videos where you are teaching some workshops online? That's going to really add value to the business. She said, oh, yeah, okay, well, I'll do that. Well, she did about 3 or 4 of them, and they were so bad because she mumbled. She didn't like having the microphone up at her lips. Um, she didn't like the look of herself on the video. Well, sorry, but that's fine if you don't like to do that, but the pool of what you can be doing is getting less, right? So then she ended up doing things like cleaning and putting on the washing machine and all of these menial tasks, which is fine. I've got another instructor at the moment. She loves doing the cleaning and stuff like that. But if you don't like doing the cleaning, because of this particular instructor that I'm talking about, who ended up leaving in the end because she was so burnt out to her own detriment, she hated doing the cleaning. She hated doing these medial administrative tasks. And I kept saying, I will do whatever you want. You tell me what it is that you want to learn more about so that you can help run the business so that you're not doing these medial tasks, but you're also not getting burnt out from teaching. Well, she left. For 2 years, we tried to figure out together what it is that she wanted to do, but she could not see herself in any other position. She left. She's no longer teaching. It's a travesty for the industry because she was a very good instructor. She's gone back to uni studying, and that's fantastic, but it's a reminder of the importance of you as an instructor making a plan to be to diversify so that you can add value to a company, to a business, so that you can have a full-time job if that's what you want, or a permanent part-time job if that's what you want. But also, what a shame it is that you get into this industry that you are so valuable as an instructor, but you can't earn enough money to be able to do what it is that you love doing. It's just a reminder. So personally, I spend most of my time now. I mean, I'm doing the advanced neuro course with Megan Coppell Duffy at the moment, and that's amazing. So yes, I'm always continuing to learn within the movement field. How can I keep adding value to my clients? Because as I've taught for over 20 years, my clients are becoming
more and more complex, which is amazing. So yes, I'm learning that, but I'm also always learning marketing, how to run a business, Facebook things, all of that sort of stuff. So maybe Facebook ads is your thing. Every studio out there should be running Facebook ads if you're going to beat the market. So maybe that's what you want to do. You've got to be thinking of other things that you can be doing within the business so that you can have a sustainable job. This is so important. If you want to avoid burnout as a Pilates instructor, you cannot just teach unless, of course, you got a sugar daddy or a sugar mummy that is holding you up, because teaching on itself simply is not sustainable. Maybe teacher training is something that you want to do, but you know what? You're still teaching. You're still putting energy into other people. And my whole point of this conversation in particular is that you really can't do that for more than 20, maybe 30 hours max as a full-time job. So you've got to be filling in those other hours somewhere else so that you can earn the wage that you need to earn to live the life that you want to live and to be doing this sustainably. I hope that that has helped you, given you some ideas. Think marketing, Facebook ads, mentoring other team members, social media, event planning for the studio that you're working with. Maybe you could be one of the customer service representatives as part of your job. You've got to think outside of the box of instructing so that you can be here long term. My name's Katie Crane. I'm the Pilates professional. Thanks so much for joining me. And remember, if you are interested in learning more as a Pilates instructor or thriving more as a business owner, I want to hear from you, because I've got the Refine Mentoring Program to refine your teaching skills, and I've got the Thrive Mentoring Program so that you can thrive as an instructor in business. See you next week. Can't wait to be with you. Love you guys. See ya.
And that's a wrap, my friend. Now, before you go, make sure you check out the show notes. That's exactly where you'll find anything we're offering alongside this very episode, and the link to subscribe to the Pilates News newsletter. Our subscribers receive free handouts and resources connected to the topics we explore right here. They're specifically created for Pilates professionals, movement educators, and Pilates lovers just like you. So, until the next episode,